Morning, everybody. It's Julie Roginski here with Olga Latman for this week's episode of Pax Americana. Olga, more and more evidence has surfaced that, contrary to the thought that, oh no, we're attacking Russia's ally, Iran, and this is so bad for the Russians, turns out that I think this is a huge payday and just a huge political victory for the Kremlin. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, right now, obviously, we see Trump again, kind of waving away the fact that Russia may be providing target, not maybe, is providing target information to Iran to kill Americans. We saw the high, the report come out of the high injuries, 130 plus Americans who have been severely injured. A lot of that could come from Russia. And that's it. And it's not surprising on any of this. Literally, none of this is surprising. Not Russia assisting Iran, not Trump covering for Russia. The only surprising part of this is Zelensky, and again, it's not surprising, it's geopolitics, but him offering help after everything that has come, not only from Trump, but from the region. Because Dubai has been used, to help Russia evade sanctions, to move dual-use components, weapon components. Oman has been used for these purposes. And frankly, this is like watching karma play out in real time, that you have, now Dubai, who was assisting Russia with, obtaining components for their drones and missiles, now actually having to deal with drones and missiles. But none of other than that, it's not really surprising to see this. And I mean, it's ridiculous that the Republican Party is not coming out again, to say, whoa, like Russia's, trying to kill Americans again. And this is, what Trump is doing. But here we are.
Yeah, I think what's fascinating about all this is that, well, it's not fascinating. Zelensky has no choice, right? He offered the United States to sell the United States anti-drone technology because the Ukrainians have perfected it over the last 4 years. And we turned them down, which I think is fascinating. But I guess Trump, when he ultimately sells out Ukraine, doesn't want to look like he owes them anything, although not that he would care about that. I just don't think he wants to deal with Zelensky, period, because that's not where his heart is. And we'll get to where his heart is in a moment. It's in Florida at meetings that were taking place. But more relevantly, on the one hand, you have Russia profiting tremendously off the oil situation. I mean, this country was on the brink. And then as soon as we attacked Iran, oil prices spiked. The Straits of Hormuz have been shut down. And as a result, Russia is making a killing. It was selling oil to China and to India at a discount. I'm not so sure it's going to be selling oil to discount to them now. I mean, it's appalling how much we continue to bail out the Kremlin each and every time. And I think Putin doesn't mind sacrificing the Iranians for that, because he's never had any allegiances to any of his allies. I mean, Venezuela couldn't care less. Syria couldn't care less. Certainly now couldn't care less. So that's one. Two, I think what's fascinating about all this is that CNN they say they broke the story. I don't think they broke it, because they just confirmed what others have been saying, which is that Russia's been sharing intelligence information with Iran about where American troops are located, and their intelligence led to the massacring of 7 of our troops. Trump does not believe it, even though, of course, that's what's happening. And at the same time that Russia is doing that and putting our troops in harm's way, the same way they did in Afghanistan towards the end of that war, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff continue to meet with Putin's bagman in Florida. I mean, again, yesterday you sent me this. There was a Russian delegation led by Vladimir Putin's special envoy Kirill Dmitriev met a U.S. delegation in Florida on Wednesday. The delegation the hosts were Wickoff, Kushner, and White House advisor Josh Greenbaum, who I don't know anything about, but I will soon.
Yeah, no, again, look, and it's good that you brought up Afghanistan because this is another thing. We have to go back to the first Trump term, and, remind everyone that then the New York Times broke a story that the Russians were paying bounties to Taliban militants to kill Americans and our other NATO allies. Paying bounties. There were several attacks. This was happening from, I believe, 2015 until that story came out 2020. So over a 5 or potentially maybe even 2014, 5 or 6 year period, Russia was paying to kill American military members in Afghanistan. At that time, Trump waved it away and said, no big deal, this is fake news and whatnot. Interestingly enough, the Insider, a few years ago, which is the Russian opposition outlet, they came out with a more detailed, investigation on this, with communications by the unit, the GRU unit, that was responsible for making the payments, as well as finding out which companies were being used to funnel the money to the militants, and whatnot. And people need to remember that during that time period, there were several ambushes on Americans where Americans died in Afghanistan. And here you had Trump at that time call it fake news. Now he doesn't even want to address it. And he sent a very clear message, besides which I really find interesting because this is coming out from the intelligence community, which means that most likely it's coming from the CIA and Ratcliffe. And the fact Ratcliffe is allowing this information to come out that the Russians are providing this targeting information is interesting on its own. But the fact is here, it's Trump's own intelligence community. I mean, he hijacked all the agencies who are not only providing this information, but they doubled down to the point of exactly pinpointing, which information the Russians are helping with, what targeting, attacks. And Trump waved it off. And then to show the world what he really thinks, he, sends his shady real estate guy, Witkoff, and his, freaking compromised son-in-law, Kushner, to meet with the Russians. So.
Yeah, I think what's fascinating about all this also is that you have just a consistent disdain from this administration for American troops, right? I mean, you have evidence from your own intelligence services that Russia is targeting American troops. You will not do anything to even publicly call them out on it, never mind privately. You have Trump sending Wickoff and Kushner to talk about, and I want to just quote what they said. Wickoff said that the teams discussed a quote unquote variety of topics and agreed to stay in touch. Well, were the variety of topics, hey, why are you guys targeting American servicemen and women?
No.
Like, was that? No, I don't think so. I think a variety of topics was how much money am I going to be able to put in your pocket, Steve Wickoff, in your pocket, Jared Kushner, and the Trump family's pocket in order to sell out Ukraine. I think those were the variety of topics that were discussed.
And as far as sanctions, lifting of sanctions, and we don't even know if we don't even know if they're already how much they're paying and moving to the Witkoff and Kushner and Trump family over the past year. Because I doubt they're meeting, constantly with Dmitriev, who is Putin's bagman. I mean,
Yeah.
this is the man who carries the luggage of cash to fund Russia's operations, and he's a messenger for the Kremlin. The fact they're constantly meeting, I mean, clearly Witkoff is not that stupid. I mean, he's a shady real estate guy from New York City, but he's not that stupid to understand Ukraine cannot and will not surrender territory. No matter how many times you come at Ukraine, they can't constitutionally do it. Zelensky doesn't have the power to do it. Um, and that's it. So I mean, they're not going to surrender territory, and of course, the Kremlin is so like I have the word in Russian, in English, like so. I guess like in
Say,
both.
say
And
it in Russian, I'll
huh?
translate it. Say it in Russian and I'll translate it.
Nagli.
Yeah,
Like
like rudely,
yeah.
yeah.
That he's like, oh, not only the territory we temporarily occupy, but we want everything. Like we want territory that we don't even occupy. Like they want more. And that's it. And the whole thing, frankly, is disgusting. And here Zelensky is trying to actually legitimately help the Americans. And look, he's doing it. I understand. To me, it's infuriating. But and Ukrainians in general are thinking past Trump. This is bigger than Trump. This is the American people. This is the United States. And U.S. has been an excellent ally to Ukraine over the past, several decades. They could have done some things better, but they have been an excellent ally. Biden particularly, really came to Ukraine's aid and did provide weapons, and he could have moved them a little quicker, but his intention was to help Ukraine, at least try to survive and push back the Russians. And that's it. And I mean, past Trump, regardless if he leaves in 2028 or 2030 or 40, he is old. He's not going, to survive or live that much longer, but the United States will continue. And Zelensky's thinking past Trump and past this absolute ridiculous real estate guy and the freaking Kushner and, all of these people. And it's not Zelensky, it's just the Ukrainian, position is that the US will remain an ally. And so I understand why he's doing it, but it's still infuriating because I mean, here you have the Russians, really giving you Iranians, like here, head over here, here, and there, to try to kill Americans. And Trump publicly is attacking Zelensky, that he's the one in blocking the so-called peace of Russia's genocidal invasion. So the whole thing is just everything is upside down. We live in such a ridiculous timeline. I was telling someone yesterday, like, how is it that one man on this planet has the power to crash the global economy, to not only domestically do everything that Trump is doing, but abroad. And like, the Russians, yes, they're benefiting right now with what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. But I mean, if the Iranians, which I do believe them, they're not, ending this anytime soon. If they do drive oil to $150, $200, trust me, the whole world comes to a halt. No one will be able to operate at that type of oil. The economies will crash around the globe, in US and around the globe. And the fact that one person is allowed to do this is absurd, if you want.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think I have said for a long time, I know that you agree, that Ukraine was the first front in the Third World War. And I just want people to understand, at least from my perspective, I don't know if you agree with this, Olga, that all this is this little excursion, as Trump calls it, which is just incredibly disrespectful to the hundreds of American service people who've been injured, to the, I think, 8 or 9 that have died. That this action, this war, is just the newest front in World War III. And that we can't go around bullying people the way we do without any kind of predicate. I'm not suggesting that Iran's a good actor. It's not. But when this is all said and done and Trump gets bored in the next week, month, he's going to get bored. This is not going to be something he's going to get sucked into forever. He will still have left this regime in place. He will still have caused untold suffering to regular civilians. He will still have created an infrastructure where the Iranians will now never cooperate on any kind of nuclear issues with us. I mean, why would they? And people have left this regime in place. So it's not like we're taking these people out. And they're going to crack down on all the demonstrators, which is why you don't see people demonstrate. Well, also there's bombs falling on them, so they're not going to demonstrate. But I mean, like, we're going to abandon the people of Iran when this is all said and done. And all this is doing is creating yet more strife and yet more animosity. And now you have reports of the Iranians, I don't know, massing some sort of ship off the coast of California and potentially being able to shoot drones from hundreds of miles away at some sort of infrastructure in California. I have no idea whether that's true. That's coming from the FBI. And sadly, we can't trust the FBI anymore. I will tell you this. There will be a terrorist attack in this country as a result of this, because the Iranians have tremendous resources. They've been the biggest exporter of terrorism in the world. They're embedded here, and something's going to happen. It already did in Texas, which nobody talks about. I mean, you had that horrible killing in Austin, Texas, within, right when the war began. But I think
and New York,
right? You're going to see something much larger and more awful. And when that happens, Trump is going to blame Democrats for shutting down the Department of Homeland Security over ICE. And I am here to say that that is the biggest bunch of shit I've ever seen in my life. I just want people to be prepared, because he's going to say that. And before he says it, I want to just dispel that right away. This administration, beginning with Doge, gutted our intelligence services nonstop. They have politicized them. They've gutted them. Trump took people who were working on counterterrorism and sent them down to the border. He just fired Iran experts because some of those people had the temerity to work on the case, or I guess were there when Mar-a-Lago got raided, when he took all that intelligence that he shouldn't have taken during the interregnum. He gutted 1,200 people from the CIA and countless others and other intelligence services. That's not the Democrats doing that. That was him. That's been in the last year. And he did it for political reasons. And because he didn't like some of the intelligence that he was seeing, because it didn't comport with his worldview. So I just want to put that marker down now, because something is going to happen. I hope vehemently that we're all safe. People who live in this country, people who live in the West generally, for those of you who live anywhere in the West, or not even the West, anybody who's an ally of ours, I hope you're safe. I hope we're all safe. But to be very clear, this is what is happening right now. And this is what this president has done. And you're right, Olga, one man, just one, has been responsible for all of this.
And I'll just add, look, I don't know a lot about Iran. That's not my area that I focus on, besides their intersection with Russia. But I do know enough about the Middle East, and I do know enough about Shiites and Sunnis to tell you that Trump is causing putting America into such danger now and in the future. I can't even emphasize how dangerous this is, because if Trump gets bored and walks away from this and says, "Oh, look, I won. We did everything. We took everything out and whatnot." Do you understand the amount of recruitment that the Iranians will be able to do to say that we defeated the great, quote unquote, Satan and Israel and whatnot? that they understand that the pressure points are economic, and that if they ever want to take down the West, all they need to do is target the economy, and they will become untouchable and quickly escalate. Well, by the way, the Russians are the ones, you never hear this, not from media or Trump, but it's been the Russians who have been helping them with the nuclear program for years. Um, so you'll have, them quickly have nuclear weapons after this, and then they can literally blackmail everyone, just like they are doing with the Strait of Hormuz. And on top of everything, the recruitment, right now, the recruitment is off the charts. I could imagine the recruitment right now to even carry out attacks across the globe, whether it's shooting, at Norway, the U.S. Embassy in Norway, or in Canada, or synagogues, or everything we're seeing, like all these attacks right now, because they have literally, are playing chess and checkmated Trump. Because Trump went into this opening a Pandora's box on a whim without actually thinking about anything, not about the tens of thousands of Americans in the Middle East. After the fact, when the State Department is like overwhelmed with fucking calls like, get me out of here. Oh, yeah, that's right. We have Americans that we need to get out of. I mean, and you went through this. You could
Well,
remind
the
everyone.
only reason I'm making that face is because it's not like they didn't have a trial run of this in June.
Yeah.
They did. Americans couldn't leave in June. And I have to wonder who the hell is sitting. I mean, does Pete Hegseth understand what this is actually a legit question. I'm not even trying to be cynical or sarcastic here, ironic. Does Pete Hegseth know what the Strait of Hormuz is? Does he understand that this is a choke point that he should have secured before launching this war? The problem is, I think Trump really was convinced by Jared Kushner or whoever the hell convinced him that a nuclear weapon was going to hit Washington, D.C. in 24 hours. So we had to go in without any preparation. And if that's true, it is terrifying that this man has the nuclear codes. It's terrifying because that's the only excuse I could think of for why there was no preparation to get Americans out. I mean, they put a message out 24 hours before attacking Iran. I want to say they attacked on Saturday morning. I think Friday, the day before, they put out a message. If you are in, and they listed a whole bunch of countries, Israel, Egypt, Saudi, anywhere in the Gulf, whatever. I think even Cyprus. I'm not sure about that. But if you're anywhere in those countries, get out now. This is your last chance. Are you kidding me? Do you think that people just have the capacity, and planes have the capacity, and airports have the capacity to have a run on flights? This is what you do? Oh, whoops. Oh, you stayed there? Oh, okay, well, your fault. And I got to tell you, I think all the time about how when we left in, when that story last June, when we sort of fled through from Tel Aviv, which is in the central part of Israel, down to Eilat, which is in the southern part of Israel, took about 4 hours. And then we walked across the border to Egypt, and then we got on, we hired a Bedouin, this very nice man, to take us down to Sharm el Sheikh, which is at the very southern tip of the Sinai Peninsula. So if you could picture the Sinai Peninsula, it's kind of a dagger that's in the Red Sea. On the one side, you have Saudi Arabia, and we're driving along the coast to get to Sharm el Sheikh, and then we get to Sharm el Sheikh, and we get to the airport. And everybody was super nice. Oh, you're American. Where were you coming from? They looked at her. Why were you just in Egypt for less than a day? Well, we were coming from Israel. And we didn't know what the reaction was going to be when you said to people in Egypt, we were coming from Israel. The nicest people. Oh my God, I'm so sorry for what you went through. Is it really awful there? Are you safe? Is everybody there safe? Could not be nicer. I wonder I've thought about this a lot, whether that same very nice man in the Sharm el Sheikh airport would be as nice to us today as Americans. And what his reaction would be today for putting his country at risk. Because this is a big recruitment tool for the Muslim Brotherhood. which Sisi has been battling since he came into office, which Mubarak was battling before him, which the minute they had the Arab Spring, they had somewhat of a free and fair election. The Muslim Brotherhood got in. So they've been squashing those. What a recruitment tool for the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. What a recruitment tool against the House of Saud in Saudi Arabia for the Wahhabi, what a recruitment tool against the monarchy in Jordan, which has never really had the support of its people.
And Bahrain and Oman.
Bahrain.
I mean, we could keep going and going. Yep.
And this did we not think, like, is there truly nobody in the Trump inner circle that even knows about any of this, that understands any of this? They got purged. And friends, we're seeing the reaction and the real life consequences of experts getting purged. I am not a Middle East expert. I just read a lot. And even I know that the Jordanian royal family is not of the majority of the people in Jordan. Even I know that if the Egyptians were not repressing the Muslim Brotherhood the way it was, the way they have been, that there would be a lot more radicalization and anti-American sentiment in Egypt, in the government, never mind anywhere else. The Saudis have been supporting Wahhabism for generations. I wrote a whole piece the other day about how we're fighting Saudi Arabia's war again, because on the one hand, you have Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince, the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, saying, no, we need diplomacy, we need peace. And then it turns out that privately he was urging Trump to do this.
We don't even, honestly, I wouldn't even believe that, honestly, because I know Saudis. My ex-husband is Yemeni, who despises, by the way, Saudis. And I can tell you that the Saudis and the Qataris, and frankly the whole region, all they care about is money and having their fake Dubai and Abu Dhabi and like this fake Vegas Riviera type thing. Do you really think that any of them, the Saudis, wanted bombs and missiles coming at them? Or that people in Qatar wanted, bombs and missiles, or Oman, or any of them? Because they understand that once you have this, and especially that America and Israel jointly initiated this, and that the majority of the population does not view Israelis in a favorable light, or the United States after, several decades of occupation and wars, that they would have to deal with domestic issues on top of having their own incomes disrupted. So I don't believe, honestly, and I do think that it could have been maybe Kushner or someone from this administration to try to bolster the point. You see, the Saudis wanted us to do this.
Well,
the Saudis.
I do. Well, there's a difference between the regular Saudis and bin Salman, right? I think bin Salman, much like the Saudi government, has always, going back to 1991, when I was a senior in high school, which is a long time ago, the Saudis have asked us for quote unquote protection, going back to Saddam Hussein invading Kuwait in 1991. And we gave it to them. And then we put bases at their request, bases on their territory to protect them. And that was the predicate for why Osama bin Laden consistently said that he attacked us, because he did not want the infidel on, the land of Mecca and Medina. I mean, that was his rationale. And don't forget that 17, I forgot how many, but I think 17 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were Saudi. And there's evidence that the Saudi officials were in touch with the hijackers. I mean, none of that has ever really been satisfactorily answered.
No.
And consistently, we have fought the wars that the Saudis have wanted us to fight. And we have taken on a lot of pain and a lot of blood and a lot of treasure to do it. And this is no exception. The Saudis hate Iran. It is their massive enemy. The Saudis are, I mean, not to get into this, they are Sunni, the Iranians are Shia. They have had a long-standing hatred of each other going back, 1,500 years. The point is, like, this predates all of us. And the Iranians have been threatening the Saudis, and the Saudis want to be the supreme, power, along with Egypt, I guess, in the Middle East. And so, look, the Saudis don't have it's going pretty well for the Saudis. They're having the Israelis blame for everything. I'm not suggesting that Netanyahu wasn't part of this, but I'm suggesting that he's taking on all of the blame, whereas the Saudis also were in Trump's year to do this. The difference is the Saudis just aren't fighting. The Israelis and the Americans are, which is typical because that's all we ever do. We always go to war for Saudi Arabia. Always, for the last 35 years, we have gone to war for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia hasn't gone to war for us. I would argue Saudi Arabia has gone to war against us by supporting Wahhabism, by radicalizing so much of their population that they attacked us in 9/11. But we have gone to war for them time and again. And I don't understand for the life of me how that has not been more out there in the public domain.
I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Kushner out of all of this, because he makes a lot of money from the region, and it'll be interesting to see because you have, several of the Gulf leaders and billionaires, who are furious. Furious. Imagine, how you call it, Dubai spent how many decades building this reputation of this, perfect paradise, and to see drones flying through, smacking buildings and hotels, and and that's it. So it's definitely taking a toll. The thing is that Trump, regardless, is not going to be able to get out of this, because if he steps away, this is going to put the Middle East even more on fire. This is going to put Americans in even more danger, because then, like I said, I could already see, what will be messaged out in Iran, like, here, we defeated America, and this is all it took, So if he steps away, it is an extreme danger. If he stays there, we're in danger, because you frankly can't get things done from the air. Like, this has to be boots on the ground and whatnot. And this is something that, if you and I, who are not experts, who do not work in the region, understand this, this is something that they should have been, prepared, plan A through Z. What if this happens? What if that happens? And whatnot. And instead, it's spiraling out of control. Domestically, the only positive out of all of this, domestically, Trump, I think, it's done. Like, I don't see anyone tolerating rising gas prices, and it's not coming down this year. So anyone who I saw people putting their gas prices on, it's only going to get more. And if we start seeing a shift in gas prices, after this mess, if it was to end today by some miracle, it will take at least 6 to 9 months for gas prices to start reversing, and for us, what we're paying at the pump, to start reversing. Not to mention what's happening with the fertilizer, and the farmers who already are on the brink of bankruptcy. So he literally, like, domestically, what he has done, and abroad is, it's incredible. It's the end of him. On the other end, we have to be careful, because frankly, I think, you went through in very good detail of everything he purged. I think, and I've said it last year, and I will continue repeating, it is in Trump's best interest to wage terrorist attacks in the U.S. He doesn't care if Americans die, how many Americans die, but it will allow him to use emergency tools like the Insurrection Act. It will allow him, he himself, sitting in the Oval Office, I forgot who he was meeting with, said, with Zelensky.
Zelensky, sure.
Yeah. War is good. War, yeah, you can't have elections because of war. This is incredible. So he can use emergency powers to try to cancel elections or postpone them, even though in America this has never happened. And that's it. And the last thing I'll say, interestingly, I actually want to write about this because I was warning about it a few years ago. Um, there were reports a few years ago, and it's interesting because it came twofold. One, it was from Ukrainians, and then Russians were uh, last year basically laying the groundwork for a false flag operation and spinning this propaganda. But basically, what it was is that Mexican cartels were in Ukraine being trained by the Russians on how to operate drones in order to launch drones against the US and for Russia to have that pressure point against the US whenever they need it. They've lost clearly Venezuela, they've lost Cuba, and just in general, Russian mafia and government officials have close ties with Mexican cartel leaders, and to have this as an additional tool is good. Last year, the Russians interestingly used one of their like faux like Spanish outlets to then regurgitate this in their media, which is a typical tactic. Um, and it was like breaking news across Aria Novosti and Taz and all the main papers that Ukrainians were preparing a attack on the U.S. by they were training Mexican cartels, and that they were preparing to attack the West Coast with drones. So just to keep that in mind, I don't know what all these data points mean. But it's good to have these data points because if the Russians, which, at that time, the reports were that you had Mexican cartel members in Ukraine training with Russian military, if they have trained on drones, then we're all fucked, basically, because then that takes it away. You don't have to wait for some Iranian connected ship to get somewhere near the US. You can easily have it from the Mexican side. And Russia, frankly, it would be in their best interest to launch a war between US and Mexico, knowing that this is something that Trump is, obsessed with. I mean, he's already threatened to strike Mexico and move in military into Mexico and whatnot. So, just to say that.
Yeah, and I want to also stress that the Iranians and the Russians understand, in some ways, understand us better than we understand ourselves. And what they're looking for is a breakthrough in this attention economy. And they got it by setting ships off the coast of Iraq, on fire that were in Iranian ports. Because what you see is not the coast of Iraq. Does Iraq even have a coast? But anyway, they effectively were able to show Americans the cost of oil burning, their money on fire. And I think that's the way you break through in this attention economy. That's very, very interesting.
And they're flooding, so people are aware, which, by the way, I'll say here, and I wish I had a bigger megaphone for this. Russia and Iran are running information operations right now. I cannot tell you the amount of Democrats I have seen retweet and quote tweet Russian operatives, all because it's falling into their bias and attacking Trump. And that's it. Like Douglas McGregor is one. Yesterday, so countless people retweeting him and whatnot. There are several. Pretty much everyone who works in the West. Max Blumenthal. I almost had fell off my chair, seeing several prominent Democrats quote tweeting Max Blumenthal. I'm like, my God. And this is another thing that we have to watch for, because the information war online right now is beyond. And it's anywhere from, Douglas McGregor, who's a sellout, I believe, former CIA or maybe military, who went to work for the Russians a long time ago. He was saying, oh, all high level, like it's fear mongering, like, oh, senior officials are hiding in bunkers and like on military bases because of, the threat posed. Basically, the Americans are being abandoned as the senior leadership, goes. To anything funny like gas prices. Like I've seen a lot of Russian bots and Russian, propagandist, American or European propagandist who um, always push Russia's operations. Like even something as funny as like Trump changing the price on at the gas station and changing it to like $8 and change. So that's another thing we need to watch out because the information war right now is off the hook.
Off the
Something.
charts. Off the
Mhm.
charts. All right, Olga. We are just a couple of programming notes. We are on for next Thursday. I am then going to be out of the country for a couple of weeks, so we are not going to be on the last week in March and the first week in April, or at least I'm not going to be here. If Olga wants to go live without me, of course she can. But
You're my partner in
and at
identifying this. No.
at noon today, in about less than 15 minutes, over here at the Mayday Network, Olga and I and Michelle Kinney and Nina Jankowicz and Jeff Jarvis and Craig Miller and a whole bunch of other people are launching premiering the very first episode of our Americans podcast, which we've been threatening to do for a year. We're finally doing it. The premiere of the pilot episode is in just about 13 minutes here on Mayday. So please stay here on Mayday and watch. And I will be in the chat to talk about it with you while you're watching. And then join us every Thursday after that for another new episode of that. And in the meantime, it was really good to see you, Olga. I'll see you not live. I won't see you live, but I'll still see you on screen in about. And
I know, I'm so excited. I mean,
yeah,
imagine this is the break we're taking from.
This is the break we're taking. We're watching
to Russian spies.
Yes, we're watching fake shows about Russian spies, which are not fake at all.
No.
Okay, all right, you guys. See you later. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.